Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here, and buckle up for a really odd broadcast. We're going to be talking about Uri Geller, the CIA, and the Mossad, as well as a new micronation known as Lamb. Now, why am I covering this story? Number one, I want to point out that although I often talk about and explore the mysteries of the universe and hidden technologies, I want to say that a lot of the things, especially revolving around the occult and psychic phenomenon, etc., via the paranormal, are in fact fraudulent. They are huckster claims that can be disproven. And when it comes to hucksters, let me say I believe Uri Geller is one of the biggest. Okay? For those that don't know, Uri Geller worked with our intelligence agencies, aka the CIA, on paranormal activity. At the same time, he was working for the Mossad. Uri Geller also happens to live in Israel now. And somehow, some way, this man has been so financially successful that he purchased his own island, has his own museum in Israel, and the island of Lamb just has such a rich and mystical history that I had to go over this article. So before we get to the article, I want to show everybody that this is not hyperbole to say that he was a Mossad agent. Uri Geller used mind powers to aid Mossad, and I would argue the only mind powers he used were those of hucksters. I encourage everybody out there to check out a guy named Darren Brown. He's kind of like David Blaine, only better, and a lot of the things he uses are neurolinguistic programming and quote-unquote esoteric knowledge. There is nothing paranormal about it. And I believe that Uri Geller tapped into a lot of this. Here's another story that you can read. What the CIA studies reveal about Mossad's secret weapon. Okay, and in this, this is the infamous spoon bender. If you want to see this, where basically Uri Geller was one of these guys that would go on these talk shows. If you want to see him embarrassed and shown to be a fraud, you can actually do so by going to YouTube. That was just a appearance. Unforgettable Uri Geller appearance on The Carson Show, 8/1/1973. 6 years before I was born. And a skeptic named James Randi, he wrote a book called The Truth About Uri Geller, and he was the one who set up basically a situation where Uri Geller could not game the system and fool people into believing he was moving things with his mind. Now, James Randi himself and the Randi forums are kind of a mixed bag to me. The Randi forums viciously attacked myself and Loose Change and 9/11 Truth in general. Randi passed away a couple years ago. He was a lifelong magician. And one of the things that I always found interesting about Randi is that he was a closeted homosexual most of his life. This guy that was out there exposing others felt like he had something to hide from society. Now, eventually he came out, but it shows this pattern of deception. And if you're going to be a quote-unquote magician or a mentalist or a psychic, I believe the two go hand in hand. In other words, psychic deception, magician deception, occult deception. Occult is just hidden knowledge. But people like Crowley, etc., I don't think that they had any magical powers. Okay, I don't believe that at all. I think that they were gaming the system, and that is the reality. So Before we read this article, I'm going to show you a couple of videos of Geller, and here it is: the mysteries that gave birth to the world's newest micronation. And this is an island off the coast of Scotland, of a triage, and the history of it is so bizarre, man. Like, the claim is that, first of all, it was that island that a daughter of the pharaoh who was taken out during the great flood in in Moses, right, when he parted the Red Sea, actually went there and colonized the land. In fact, in this article, as we scroll down here, this is the ancient text, the National Records of Scotland, a page from Scoticronin, which tells of the founding of Scotland by an Egyptian princess. And whenever you get into, these histories that date back centuries, I am always extremely interested in them. So we're probably going to read a lot of this because Dodi Al-Fayed is in this article. Uri Geller refers to the synchronicity in this article and much more. But first, I'm going to let Uri Geller explain to you how you can become a citizen of Lamb for only $1. And basically, he talks about how this is going to be raising money for children and heart care. Now, look, I want children who have heart problems and need special medical attention to get as much of that medical attention as possible. But often what you find with these type of charities is it is a front for some other purpose. And I'll say it again. How in the world does a famous psychic, who's also an intelligence asset, get his own island? Hey, wait a minute. Wasn't Jeffrey Epstein an intelligence asset? Didn't he have connections to the Mossad too? Really weird, right? Very bizarre. So let's play a couple videos because I think they're important. Here is Uri Geller just a couple days ago on his Twitter telling you how you can become a citizen of the nation of Lamb. They have their own flag. They have their own song. Come aboard. Here's Uri.
My dear friends, I'm so excited to declare to you that today my Lamb Island is becoming a country, a micronation, and it has an anthem, it has a flag, and it has citizenship. You can become a citizen of my Lamb Island, the country. All you have to do is go to my website, urigeller.com. Citizenship will cost you $1. And do you know where the $1 goes? To Save a Child's Heart, a charity here in Israel that saved over 6,000 children from all over the world, also from Gaza, Arab children, African children, American kids, worldwide. Please go to urigeller.com and become a citizen. You'll get a certificate. Look at this beautiful island. That's gonna be your new country with a flag, an anthem, and a citizenship. Wow! Please do it. Save a child's heart.
Now, again, this is nothing more than a marketing ploy. You're not going to be able to go to this island and settle there. There aren't going to be neighborhoods. This is all a ploy to build off the mysticism of this island and this pseudo history that may or may not be true. In fact, in the article, they also equate it to the pyramids and ley lines. And anytime I hear ley lines and energy sources, my skeptic meter goes through the roof. And that's not to say that we don't live in an electromagnetic field. We do. We do. That's not to say that there aren't technologies out there that may harness this power. There may be. But do you think Uri Geller is going to be able to do that? No, Uri Geller is a fraud. So here's a video he posted the day after this. I think it was either yesterday or the day before, where he's at his museum And the Iron Dome is knocking out missiles that are being launched into Israel after we had Israel kill, I believe it was 12 individuals on the Gaza Strip, and now they're returning rocket fire. Wonderful. And by the way, our media really never covers that fact because Israel is supposed to be our greatest ally. I think that's disturbing. Okay? I don't like the Anglo-American Saudi-Israeli alliance. I think it is extremely detrimental to our sovereignty. I think that obviously Israel had a role in 9/11. You can watch my film Fabled Enemies. It's not just the dancing Israelis everybody talks about. It goes well beyond that. We get into a bunch of that stuff. And I've even talked about the art students that were actually in the building of the World Trade Center were able to take out one of the windows of the World Trade Center and walk outside while being filmed by an early internet mogul named Josh Harris from a helicopter, who later claimed that the Mossad was spying on him. And let's not forget that the Mossad was also accused by Rose McGowan through Black Cube of investigating, following, and harassing her on behalf of Harvey Weinstein. So let's watch Uri Geller here in a shirt that maybe you'd see Jason Bermas wear. Affliction, I'll give you props for that, Uri. Still rocking it, just like this guy, as bombs are going off above him.
Hi everybody, I'm in the museum and rockets are coming in. You can hear the sirens and I better go in now. There it is, guys. The rockets are almost over the museum and they were intercepted by the Iron Dome. Yep. So peaceful. Look at this sea. And wow. Over the museum. There it is.
And there it is, the Uri Geller Museum. Now, I'm not going to lie. I would love to be able to go there and check that out. I don't know if I'm ever going to make my way into the Middle East. I do remember when Luke Radowski went out to both Israel and Palestine, and he actually stayed at the Banksy Hotel. I thought that was really interesting. I think that area is extremely dangerous, and I think it's extremely dangerous for honest journalists as well. But let's talk about this island, okay? Because it is so odd that you have so much being discussed about this with its ancient and rich history and mysticism, okay? The young Stevenson was unaware of the myths, okay, that the outcrops of the Firths of Scotland were the first to be colonized here, okay? To the east. Known as Lamb, it has attracted scant attention from the kayakers, occasional bird watchers, and wildlife volunteers. But it could yet turn out to be a real treasure of its own. At least that possibility dangled by its colorful, charismatic, and controversial owner, the world's most famous spoonbender and legendary psychic, Uri Geller. Now 13 years after he bought it. Now that's a little weird to me because it shows him there for the first time in 2010. It seems like that would be 10 years ago, but again, I don't know all the details of how he acquired this. But it does tell you who he acquired it from, which again is just like oligarchy supreme. A master of grand gesture has decided to elevate Lamb's status from a private Scottish island to that of a country with a flag, a constitution, and an anthem. It almost reminded me of the Family Guy episode where Peter Griffin creates Pretoria, right? I mean, that's what immediately went into my mind. I think to myself, wait a minute, this guy's got an island and somehow now it's going to become a micronation? While Scotland is busy debating its own path to possible independence, the emergence of the football pitch-sized Republic of Lamb means its comparatively giant neighbor has just, in theory, got a little bit smaller. And that is in theory. Lamb is a place like no other, says Geller, from his home in Old Jaffa, Israel, and it deserves its own identity. This is a fitting way to do it, even though nobody lives there. And it's so weird because they talk about how there's a soul rat there. It's like, how could there be a soul rat on the island? It takes two to tango. All right? That's what I'm telling you right now. Let's see. Check this out. Lamb Island is not the first so-called micronation. There have been dozens declared dating as far back as the 19th century, some serious, many not. I would not say that this is serious at all. Some have issued their own stamps, currencies, and citizenships. The short-lived Kingdom of Lovely, born out of a TV programmer and based in a flat in East London, could arguably claim the title of the most citizens with more than 58,000 who registered online. Again, it feels like a gag. And you're going to go to his website, you're going to give $1, and all of a sudden you're a citizen of Lamb. Geller is offering citizenship, with all proceeds going to Save a Child's Heart, an Israeli charity which treats children with heart conditions from all over the world. All right? I always wanted to own my own island and be like James Bond. I couldn't get over that quote because this guy was a spy. He is like James Bond. All right? I wanted to own my own island and be like James Bond. The guy's 75, and I'll give him this. He looks pretty damn good for 75. Who first learned about Lamb when he read that it was up for sale in the Times newspaper. But it was intriguing, some say dubious, claimed the amateur historical researcher, which captured Geller's imagination and convinced him to buy it. For according to the Scottish-born investigator Jeff Nisbet, Lamb has inexplicable similarities to the pyramids of Giza. Bum, bum, bum. And I don't know whether that's true or not. Again, I think there's a lot of pseudo-history. Nisbet pointed out the layout of Lamb and the two islands on either side, which he said mirrors exactly that of the three pyramids. The pyramid's own precise geometric design has long been a source of fascination for mathematicians and Egyptologists, as well as lay people like myself. I do find it fascinating. In fact, Nisbet was not the only person to posit the idea of Scottish links to ancient Egypt. A 15th century Scottish chronicle described by the National Library of Scotland as probably the most important medieval account of early Scottish history, says Egypt gave rise to the Scottish nation. It claims that Scotland was actually founded by Princess Scotta, the exiled daughter of the pharaoh, whose army in the biblical account drowned pursuing Moses and the Israelites across the Red Sea. And there's a very long documentary out there, if you can still find it. I think there are certain aspects of it that are fascinating. I think there are certain aspects of it that are dead wrong. But it's called The Ring of Power. And it goes into, I would say, Jesus and his origins, and I believe it's Amen Cotton and the origins of Amen. And basically, this line going all the way back to ancient Egypt into all these modern cultures. So if you got time and you can find it, The Ring of Power is at least a very interesting watch. Now, again, this caught my eye. One notable figure who sets great store by the story is Egyptian-born tycoon Mohammed Al Fayed, a UK resident since the 1960s. Mr. Al Fayed is an ardent supporter of the Scottish independence and has offered to be the first president of a sovereign Scotland. The other thing about Mohammed Al Fayed is that his son was Dodi Al Fayed, and he's the one that went to court and accused the royal family of murdering his son and Princess Diana. Let me repeat that again. He's the one that went out there. He went on Howard Stern and talked about it, claimed Diana was pregnant and that the royal family would not have it, and that was the line. And he even discussed how, he comes from bloodlines that are hundreds and thousands of years old. Okay? Geller says that to the best of his recollection, Mr. Al-Fayed told him the story that Skota anchored her boat off of Lam and buried treasure there. Ooh, there might be buried treasure. While there is no documentary evidence of this, Geller, who reportedly made a fortune from prospecting for oil and mining corporations by using the ancient practice of dowsing, says he will employ the same methods to search for the treasure. Yeah, I'm sure that's how he made his money. I'm sure it had nothing to do with the vast amount of intelligence work that he did. The island is part of a special protection area, meaning digs are out of the question, although a team of battlefield archaeologists has volunteered to explore it. I think there's a good chance that eventually it will get explored. Whether they find anything or not, I'm not sure. I also thought it was interesting that they discussed the possibility of the infamous North Berwick witchcraft trials in the 1590s may have used that island to bury these people out of superstition. So just so the dead burned witches couldn't affect them any longer, they actually went out to the island and buried them there. Again, there's not a lot of evidence of that. A lot of people say that they were buried on site, but I bring that up because what? Inside his museum in Jaffa, he's got glass spheres known as witch balls, aka the crystal balls that we've all come to know with that type of mythos. All right. Where's the individual that he bought it from? Here it is right here. The idea of turning Lam into a micronation occurred to Geller after he explored the possibility of buying the barony title, which came with territory which had historically included the island. However, Lam was severed from the barony when it was sold to Geller by the current Baron of Derlaton, an Orthodox Jewish Portuguese Brazilian entrepreneur to whom the title had been bequeathed by the previous holder. It'd be great if somebody could bequeath me the title to an island. I'd love that. Anybody out there that's got one, doesn't need it anymore, I'll take it. Thanks. I appreciate it. Here it gets even a little bit more wild, okay? And I just couldn't help myself because they bring up King Solomon's temple in this. According to Irish lore, the famous Stone of Destiny, or Stone of Scone, was brought from Jerusalem to Tara in the 6th century BC by the prophet Jeremiah and the daughter of the last king of Judah. The story was recounted in the speech in the British House of Lords by Lord Brisbara of Tara in 1951. The stone is said to have been used as a pillow by Jacob in the biblical account and later kept in Solomon's temple. They even bring up King Arthur in this. Okay. Geller calls the discovery of this Scottish fourth brick that they found synchronicity. We talk about synchronicity here. And again, I think that this is a guy that is playing on mythology and the ignorance of people and using his tradecraft to do so. And that tradecraft is actually spying and espionage and deception. Let me tell you right now, we're not about deceiving people. We're about telling the truth here. And that's why I give away all of my stuff. That's why I don't have a museum or an island or millions upon millions of dollars. Loose Change Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, Invisible Empire, A New World Order to Find, and Shade the Motion Picture can be found right here, right now, in the playlist section for free. And if you're watching on Rockfin, Shade and my documentaries are pinned at the top. I want you to watch them. I want you to share them. And I want you to have an open mind, but at the same time use discernment. If there's something in my films that you don't necessarily agree with or think that I got wrong, I would encourage you to pursue that line of questioning and see if you can find evidence to the contrary. That helps everybody. I don't ever want to get anything wrong, but if I have, I want to acknowledge that I got it wrong because I'm a human being and I can make mistakes. If you want to support this broadcast, the links are down below. You can buy me a coffee, $5, $10, $15. It means the world to me. Or you can make a premium subscription over at Rockfin, $99.99 for the year or $9.99 a month, and then you get everybody's premium content. I give away all my stuff for free, but you can get other great creators like Max Blumenthal, Kim Iverson, Nico House, The Convo Couch, AM Wake Up, and so many more. Because guys, as you know, to me, it's not about left or right. It's always about right and wrong. I thought I'd do this one because it was kind of fun, kind of interesting, and something I wanted to put in the public arena. So I just want to say I love you guys, and I'll see you on the flip side.